It's 18 minutes to 9. Is BBC comedy too left-wing? Well, the Daily Telegraph has reported that the new Director General, Tim Davie, is planning to tackle perceived left-wing bias in the corporation's comedy shows and says that there may be change on the way. Well, we can talk now to Leo Kearse, who describes himself as a right-wing liberal, and we're also joined by Ayesha Hazarika, stand-up political commentator and former Labour advisor. Good morning to you both.
Hello.
Hello.
Leo, let me begin with you. Do you think there is any kind of bias in BBC comedy?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's only one right-wing comedian on the BBC, and he's actually one of the funniest ones, Geoff Norcott. And it's not just that BBC comedy has got a huge left-wing bias. It's got a lazy, sneering, anti-working class bias. It's just lazy jokes. You just hear the same thing, like Boris has got stupid hair, Donald Trump's an idiot. It's boring. And there's no diversity. The diversity in BBC comedy runs skin deep. They just get, it's run by a nepotistic Oxbridge cabal who just get other Oxbridge people with a slightly different skin colour to present things. But if you shut your eyes, Nish Kumar, he didn't go to Oxbridge, he went to Durham. But if you shut your eyes, Nish Kumar could be, just any other posh middle class white guy.
Ayesha Hazarika, what's your response?
Well, I think there's a couple of things to unpick on that. I think there's sort of the comedy that sort of, I suppose, the BBC commissions, and I do have some sympathy with what sort of Leo says. I mean, ironically, the sort of comedy that does get commissioned is, there are gatekeepers. There's a certain type of person. It does tend to be quite Oxbridge, quite London-centric. But if you're talking about kind of panel shows, essentially these panel shows are satire shows, and satirists tend to take aim at the rich and powerful, and they don't tend to like whoever is in government. Now, it just so happens we have had a Tory-led government for 10 years. Hence, people are going to be having a bit of a shot at this Conservative Party. I mean, when Tony Blair was in power for a long time, it wasn't like, have I got news for you? We're like, oh my God, we really, really love Tony Blair. And let's not forget, shows like Have I Got News for You, made stars of people like Boris Johnson. So are we really kind of saying that we want to have a world where we have a kind of North Korean, we're not allowed to poke fun at the ruling classes? I mean, that is the whole point of satire.
That is one of the principles of satire, isn't it? Is to attack the powerful. And as Ayesha was saying, the Conservatives have been in power since 2010.
Yeah, and perhaps if you allowed some right-wing comedians on the BBC, they wouldn't be in power all the time. I mean, the only place people can voice any dissent against the sort of the liberal progressive stance that sort of dominates public discourse in the media and across Twitter and social media, the only place you can voice any dissent against that is in the polling booth. And that's why, people are voting for Boris Johnson, Donald Trump. These are the new comedians. Comedians all have to act.
Do you think they're really voting that way because they don't like the comedy on the BBC? Really?
Well, it's part of the whole thing. I mean, you got to ask, why are people voting for Donald Trump? He comes out and says the most outrageous, hilarious things. He's the new comedian. Comedians have to be very careful about what we say. I mean, I get blacklisted. I get banned from places.
Oh, be careful! That sounds like an anti-Trump joke.
I think we really need to have some actual genuine diversity of opinion on the BBC and in the public discourse. And you've got to stop shouting people down for having mainstream political opinions.
Ayesha, so where would you find greater diversity of views? If comedians are being picked from the comedy circuit, is there diversity there?
There is, but I mean, just to come back on that, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. There was a point when Nigel Farage was on the BBC so often, he may as well have had a staff pass. And let's not forget as well, the left went absolutely nuts when people like Tracy Ullman took, quite rightly, a good old pot shot at Jeremy Corbyn. They were absolutely up in arms about Jeremy Corbyn being, labelled as sort of anti-Semitic. I mean, and then sort of proved their case by retorting with lots of anti-Semitic bullying on Twitter. So I think that both the left and the right mode. What I do think that could be is I do think people who commission BBC comedy and who put people on panel shows could draw from a greater pool. I've been lucky enough to do a couple of panel shows, and I'll tell you something, I'm the only woman and I'm often the only person of colour.
Ayesha and Leo, we'll have to leave it there. Leo Kearse, Ayesha Hazarika, thank you.